Say good morning to those of you listening to Classic Radio 105.5. Good morning to you, those of you listening to, of course, us via 105.9, also 105.5, 105.9 Classic Radio. Those of you who are also viewing this morning via GBN TV, whether it's Channel 7, Channel 11, or Channel 20, good morning and welcome to another edition of To The Point. Today being Thursday, the 8th day of February, 2024. And those of you via social media platforms, whether it's the Facebook page, YouTube channel, good morning to you and welcome. I'm your host, Glen, Telesford. I can simply go by the initials GT. I have no problem you calling me that. And with me this morning, from representing the fire department, we have for you ASP Hamilton, and we have for you, is it Inspector Mitchell? How do I get it right? Yes. Sergeant Mitchell. My bad. Sergeant Mitchell. All right. I'm sorry for the mix-up there. Let me say good morning to you, gentlemen, and welcome to The Point this morning.
Good morning, GT, and good morning to your viewers and listeners at home and abroad. Just a slight correction, is Acting Inspector Hamilton.
Acting Inspector Hamilton. My bad on that. My bad on that. All right, but I guess we have that corrected, so I have that good as we move forward. Welcome to this edition of The Point, to the Point this morning, and representing the fire department, as I mentioned before. Our focus this morning is to spend a bit of time informing our listeners and viewers. We are approaching the dry season. Yeah, we are approaching. Some will say we're already into the dry season, because usually around this time of the year, that's when the dry season actually kicks in. Because in Grenada, we basically have two seasons: the dry season and the rainy season, as we will call it locally. Sometimes you have to distinguish, because sometimes we do get rain so much in the dry, and sometimes when it's the rainy season, it's a bit dry still and hotter there. So sometimes we have to differentiate what season we are. Sometimes it's a little bit confusing. Now, maybe for the benefit for the listeners and viewers out there, of course, you could probably share some information on the seasons for us from the fire department point of view. Maybe we could share that. Who's going to chime in on that for me first and foremost?
Thank you very much, GT. In Grenada and the rest of the Caribbean, we have typically two seasons. Yeah. A dry season, which is from the period of June to December, and a wet season, which is typically from the dry season is basically from January to May, Yeah, correct. And the wet season is from June to December. All right, so during the dry season, typically weather conditions, you have a reduction in rainfall, which leads to drought-like conditions. As a result of a reduction in the rainfall, the trees and other shrubs will shed their leaves as a means of for survival of the tree. So they will shed the leaves to cover up the ground and to ensure that there is moisture. With the dry season, based on the period of time, with the reduction in rainfall, you can lead to drought conditions. So we could have an agricultural drought, which can affect farmers and persons involved in the agricultural industry. You could also have what we refer to as a water drought that can affect Nawasa relative to water catchment and so forth. So, and again, it is one of the most busiest period in operations from the fire department point of view, where we respond to several calls for service relative to bushfires. And bushfires are fires that are what we refer to as uncontrolled fires, which are sometimes set deliberately or sometimes which can be as a result of natural phenomena. All right. So again, that also aiding with the dry season is what we refer to as evapotranspiration. As you realize now, we have this heavy wind blowing across the landmass, and it aids in removing moisture from the leaves and also from the soil. So that hastens the process of the onset of the dry season. Also, we also have to be mindful that sometimes we have what we refer to as a wet dry season. Yes. And when we refer to a wet dry season, we're talking about during the period where we expect of the dry season, we have rainfall. So that slows the onset of the dry season. Okay. So presently now, we're in the early part of the dry season. Typically is a period of time where persons who live in areas prone to bushfires and so forth should be making all the necessary preparation for the dry season. All right. Yes? All right. Notwithstanding that, like the wet season, we all know is basically from June to December. Mm-hmm. And during that period, we have extensive rain, or we could have a reduction in rainfall. That could lead to some serious hot conditions, as we experienced last year, September and so forth. Okay. And once you have a reduction in rainfall, that means you have a reduction in moisture on the ground.
All right.
So you could have conditions, and if the rainfall doesn't improve, let's say November, December, you can have an early onset of the dry season, as far, let's say, as early as late latter parts of December or early January.
All right.
Right. So typically the dry season peaks between the period of March, April, May.
Okay.
Right, so that's time when outside is much more dry, and the conditions, the environmental conditions, are more conducive.
All right.
For fire growth and fire spread and so forth.
All
because if you have a reduction in rainfall, then automatically the leaves and so on, referred to firefighting as forest litter or leaf litter, you'll have much more on the ground. And if fires are improperly and carelessly set,
all right,
we can see bushfires or uncontrolled fires and so forth occurring. And also the people involved in agriculture, during the dry season, sometimes they do the land clearing and so forth. So persons who are involved in cocoa farming, they normally clean up their fields during the dry season.
All right.
You understand? So they rake up the straws and so forth, and sometimes they tend to burn.
All right.
So our objective here this morning is really to give information to the general public.
Okay.
As to prepare them for the dry season.
And my next question led to this final word you just mentioned, preparation. How does one get themselves prepared? Or who should make the necessary preparation when we enter the dry season?
We all should make preparations regardless of where we live, but persons who live in areas prone to bushfires,
yes,
should make the necessary preparations. That means preparations include, but not limited to, ensuring that you have a safe distance around your house. So let's say a distance of 50 to 120 feet, clear in all directions of your house. All right, so if the fire is burning uphill, when you reach that spot, there will be no more fuel for it to continue.
All right.
Yes. Stocking sufficient water supplies, making sure you have garden hose and all the necessary equipment that will aid you in suppressing the onset of a fire.
Okay. Now, an important factor that will play a critical role is the safety measures. Let's get into the conversation of safety measures that regular individuals, households, as you said, in areas that are prone to fires should pay attention, should of course be doing right about now. I guess you will have safety measures that you would like to, of course, inform individuals, especially the farmers and so forth. Can we get a list of some of those safety measures that individuals should put into practice, I would say, around this time? Who's going to take it with me, this one?
Well, as a means of preventing bushfires and suffering loss as a result of bushfires, homeowners and persons who own and farmers and so forth have that responsibility, as I stated earlier on, to ensure that within their area or within their the surroundings, that they reduce the conditions of bushfire to start and grow. Typically, we will advise persons to avoid do not burn on. Avoid burning.
All right.
When we say avoid burning, we're talking about combustible materials like your fence. If you just cut your fence, you rake up your stuff and so forth from your yard and so forth. Avoid burning.
All right.
Because sometimes when you set the fire, especially at a time like now with this heavy wind, and you don't pay attention to it, what can happen is the fire can spread from its points of origin here to some other part, to some other dry combustible materials within the area, and burn out of control. So by the time you return, the fire is out of control. Right. So we want to advise persons first of all to stop or restrict the whole idea that as once you cut your grass or you rake up and stuff like that, you must burn it. Right. So we're asking persons to or
maybe they can find some alternative way of discarding
like
those
composted and stuff like that. Right. You also have to take in consideration the persons within your area where you live, because you burning the stuff here can affect your neighbor. The person probably might be asthmatic or so.
Yeah. And
that person can have a medical emergency. persons who smoke and stuff like that, all right, smokers, persons who hunt, farmers and stuff like that, when you go to the land and so forth, after you smoke your cigarette, make sure that the boot is dead out.
Yes.
You crush it out, so you just don't smoke and just dispose of your cigarette boot as you so please, right? And indiscriminate disposal of your cigarette boot could lead to the start of a bushfire.
All right.
And I really want farmers and other persons who smoke to be mindful of that. If you live in an area where bushfire is prone, again, have water. Have sufficient water. Have buckets and drums and so forth. Sometimes in this time of the year, you realize people are doing land clearing, probably for the purpose of building a house or probably for agricultural purposes, right? So if you're in a residential area or in a farming area and you realize that, pay attention to the persons who come. Take the number of the vehicle and probably if you have a camera, if you take a picture of them, so probably if they set a fire, that could aid in the investigative process.
All right.
Yes. Be mindful of the weather condition, wind, hot sunny days, and the topography of your land.
All right.
So with wind on a windy day, what happens? The wind bend the flames of the fuel to the direction of the flames of the fire to the direction of the fuel. Right, a fire burns uphill much faster than downhill.
Okay.
Right.
That's interesting.
And again, temperature.
Yeah.
As the day goes on, right, the surface temperature heats up. The water, the moisture that is in the fuel, and the fuel is defined as anything that burns. And in that case, the fuel we will refer to things as leaves and so forth. So all the moisture will be evaporated as a result of the heat. So once you have once a fire starts, and in conditions like that, it will burn and burn violently.
And even spread faster.
Yes, faster.
All
so
right.
There is less moisture in the fuel, and it will burn much faster. And again, the fire could start here, but you could have what we refer to as spontaneous combustion in the wildfire environment, where sufficient heat is given off by the materials that is burning in this area, and can ignite materials uphill that are much more lighter and smaller. For example, let's say that there is a razor grass uphill.
Yes.
And you have that big blaze here, and the wind is pushing the flames in that direction. So you have a result, what we refer to in firefighting as heat transfer, resulting in spontaneous ignition of bushes and other flammable and combustible materials within that area, causing the fire to spread and get out of control.
All right. When it comes to the issue of individuals who store flammable materials and so forth, what kind of advice would you like to throw to them this morning?
Well, individuals who really store flammable materials, we ask them, or we like them to store them in a conducive area.
Yes.
All right. Not with other materials that is flammable, because we know sometimes you put your gasoline. Most people now have a lot of weed eaters, and you have your gas,
yes,
you have your oils and so forth, which may be flammable materials, and you store it together with your cardboards and other things.
Right.
So we ask them to, if they have to store it, you look for a conducive area, like an area where maybe concrete, not together with cardboards and other paper and so forth, just in case you have a incident. It will easily catch, and it causes a greater damage.
Now, what about the option of outdoor storage? Would that be encouraged?
Yes, especially gasoline. You don't really store, like, I want to go to your kitchen. We have the 20-pound cylinder.
Yeah.
And most people, you see, have it in your cupboards. In your cupboards or below your sink, close to your stove.
Is that encouraged at all? Would you say the fire department will encourage individual of doing that?
No.
Is that safe in any way at all?
No, it's not safe. we prefer that it is out, so you can, just in case you have a gas leak, it does not combust in that area. But because you have it out, you get it to vent. You open your windows and so forth. So you vent out, then you have it inside of that cupboard. So storing combustible material is very important, that you know where to put it and how to store it.
All right. Anything further on that?
Let me just add a little piece to what Sergeant Mitchell indicated there. First of all, flammable liquids should be stored in the appropriate containers.
Yes.
And you should have a minimum in your premises.
All right.
What we realize, some cases you have persons who store gasoline, kerosene, and so forth in glass bottles.
Yes.
Or they use just a regular plastic bottle. It's not designed to store the flammable liquid.
All right.
Right. So we want to encourage persons to store it in the required bottles or containers. Right. As Sergeant indicated, you store it away from other combustible materials, and outside storage is the best. And try and keep your fuel to a minimum.
Yeah.
You have a wheel heater. All right. There is no reason for you to have 6 and 7 gallons of gas stored home. You should have sufficient gas just for your operation.
Yes.
For probably the last 2 operations. You understand? And it should be stored in a safe area. The bottle should be marked flammable.
Yes.
Right? And it can be easily identified. To add more to it, persons can look at the idea. This one might probably out of the reach of some people, but buying fire-resistant containers for the purpose of storing the liquid. So if a fire were to occur, the container have a level of fire-resistant capacity that it wouldn't melt or break down. Once exposed to a particular temperature.
All right.
Also, what we want to encourage the gas stations, that when persons come with containers that is not suitable for as the inspector said, there is bottle mark gasoline. It's not suitable because some people go with the Clorox bottle, the water bottle, and the gas is hot. Yes. Sometimes it melts that bottle, and you may be home, you have it in your home, and the gas melts the bottle and it's leak out, and you're not even conscious about that, and you go to like your stove or something, and it ignites. So we're encouraging the gas stations that when persons come with container that is not conducive for fluid, do not sell it to them. Let it go and get a proper bottle. All
right. And you do hear from time to time, if you visit the gas stations, you would hear the attendants telling you, well, that particular container is not of the standard for using, for getting, if you want gas to go with or something, they probably won't sell you. I have actually seen, attendants at gas station actually make it that decision. Hey, the container that you come with, it's not proper, so they wouldn't sell you. Yes. I mean, there are some who may just try to assist sometimes, but it's not the right thing to do. Gentlemen, we due for a break. Let's take it. When we come back, folks, we continue with our conversation this morning. Stay with us here on the Classic Radio. It's to the point. We're talking to the fire department this morning, and of course, we're talking about preparation for the dry season. We'll be right back after the break. Stay with us. I'm a VIP.
Planning and Development Authority of Grenada, PDA, is enforcing regulations to curb illegal, disorderly, and unauthorized development in several locations throughout the state of Grenada. The authority is concerned that structures mainly associated with vending are negatively impacting the environment, has undesirable public health and sanitation consequences, present obstructions to vehicle and pedestrian traffic, can become projectiles during adverse weather conditions, and generally affect the aesthetics of the nation. The PDA will work along with stakeholder ministries and institutions to effect the demolition, removal, and disposal of structures which fall in the category of illegal and disorderly development, commencing January 2024. In this regard, persons who vend in or occupy such illegal structures are advised to secure their personal belongings and have the structures removed ahead of the planned PDA demolition operations. These actions actions of the PDA have become necessary to safeguard and protect public health and the environment, ensure the safety and well-being of all citizens and visitors, discourage any future disorderly construction, and encourage compliance to regulations pertaining to physical development in the state of Grenada. This is a message from the Planning and Development Authority of Grenada.
The National Lotteries Authority is a proud sponsor of many cultural activities within the Tri-Island state of Grenada.
My name is Anderson Matterson, also known as Leftist, and I'm a calypsonian and string band music player from Carrico. I support the games of the National Lottery Authority because culture benefits tremendously. Annually, the NLA supports the Carrico and Pritimatini Carnival, the Carrico String Band Music Festival, and all regattas, among other activities. When I play the game of the NLA, I can see where my money goes, and it's an investment into our culture.
Yes, Grenada, when you play the games of the NLA, you enable us to invest in the skills and talents of our people in the areas of sports, culture, and nation building.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, viewers, to this edition of To The Point for today, Thursday, the 8th day of February. Welcome back, officers, with me this morning. And we're talking about preparation for the dry seasons. Officers, my next question relates to, with everything else, there's always something that governs how things are done. It relates to an individual may consider, well, I as you mentioned, I cleared some bush around my house. The best procedure I could do is probably just light it on fire. You understand? I for some reason, I have some old materials around the house, and I think, well, the only way I can discard of it is maybe catch it on fire and say it in the simplest way forward. No, in everything is so. There's always going to be laws that in terms of relating to that. Now, tell us some of the laws that relates. Especially, let's kick it off with laws relating to folks in the agriculture, sector. I would say the laws that would sort of relate to how individuals in the agricultural sector should deal with setting fires. Who's going to attempt to answer that for me?
Well, setting fires, there's a law in relation to setting fire. Section 72, Volume 2, Chapter 6 of 2010, Continuous Laws of Grenada. There is a procedure whereby you must go through to set fires. Okay. The laws related to an act to regulate the setting of fires on agricultural land. So, agricultural land, there is a law in process for that, setting fires on agricultural land. So, it's not just light fire, clean up and just light fire. All right. But there is a procedure we got to go through. So
there's a law and there's a procedure. So let's hit probably the procedure part of it now. What's an individual has to do in terms of wanting to set a fire, especially when they come to the agriculture sector, or so in the agriculture sector?
Well, setting fires, like you clean up, you want to set fire, you must apply to the extension officer, Ministry of Agriculture, to get a license to do so.
All right.
The license gives give you the permission to light that fire, but there is conditions in also lighting that fire. So you just have a license and say, okay, well, I could light. Right. There is conditions that gives for you to light.
If I could ask another question in between this, because you did mention you go to the agriculture department, Ministry of Agriculture, that gives you the permission. Yes. But is it the Ministry of Agriculture in conjunction with the fire department this works, or is it just the Ministry of Agriculture just say, hey, go ahead and light your fire, or something of that sort?
Well, Ministry of Agriculture.
Yes.
Right? Responsible.
But the other one's responsible for it.
But if the only person obtain that license, the fire department then get involved where they have to inform us.
All right.
Yes.
So the Ministry of Agriculture offers give them the permission and our license, as you would say, to go ahead and start the fire, setting that fire. But then it's in conjunctions with that individual has informed the fire department. No, that's where the fire department comes in.
Yes, they must bring in a copy of that license.
All right.
And before they set that fire, they must inform the fire department because the license have a duration time within that time. And on the license, it also gives them the right to inform the fire department that they will be setting that fire within that particular time.
Does the fire department play a role in terms of, hey, let me visit the particular area that you want to light that fire, or so before you do it, or the individual have the right to just go ahead and do it?
All right, let me just chime in here, Mr. Telesford. When the applicant applies to the Ministry of Agriculture, they apply to the Chief Extension Officer, and the Chief Extension Officer can designate persons within the Ministry of Agriculture. Like we have various agricultural districts. He can authorize these persons to issue license to farmers. Yes. So when the application is received and the law speaks of how the person shall apply, in writing or in person. All right. So persons who cannot write and so forth, they apply in person, and the Chief Extension Officer or his designate has a responsibility. That is stated in subsection 4 of the Semi-Agricultural Fires Act that Sergeant Mitchell speak on. Upon receiving the application mentioned in the preceding section, the authorized officer may, in his absolute discretion, grant a license for the setting of fire on land, or cause an inspection of the land and a report thereon made by some competent person to be named by him before granting or refusing the license. All right. So, in most cases, the persons in the Ministry of Agriculture are competent, right, to carry out the inspection on the land and to determine whether or not burning is necessary. Because in the same application process, the person or the farmer applying for that permission, he must state the reason why, in his opinion, he believes burning is necessary. And the person or the extension officer from the district will visit the land and carry out an inspection. Right? So let's move on to section 4. Right? A license granted under this act shall be as far as circumstances permit. Right? And they normally give you a form that outlines the condition. However, notwithstanding that you have a license from the Ministry of Agriculture to go ahead and set fire.
There are conditions there.
However, there is another piece of legislation that comes into play, and we'll speak about that later on. Right? However, if you apply for a license, right, and that's Section 5 of the Semi-Agricultural Fires Act, if the authorized officer does not reply to the applicant within 10 days of receipt of the application, right, such applicant shall be at liberty to set the fire on his land without incurring any liability or penalty under the Agricultural Fire Act.
If you have to break that down a little bit, so if I'm understanding from what you said, if an individual makes an application, 10 days has passed, he hasn't received any formal notification from the Agriculture, but he can proceed and set that fire.
But notwithstanding that he can proceed. There is another piece of legislation which is 147, the Use of Fire Act, that comes into play. You understand? And the Use of Fire Act is in Cap 72A of Volume 4 of the 2010 Continuous Revised Laws of Fire, Laws of Grenada, and it speaks about precautions required of persons about to set fire to tree. Right? And it says here 147.1 subsection 1, for the purpose of preventing loss, damage, injury, every person who intends to set fire or cause fire to be set to any tree, brushwood, rubbish, guinea, or other grass, trash, or cane piece, shall give notice to all neighbors possessing or in charge of property which might be damaged or destroyed by the fire if carelessly and improperly used, and to take precautions to prevent any damage or destruction to the property of his neighbors.
All right.
So when you go back to the Agriculture Fires Act, notwithstanding
that he can go ahead and do it
and set the fire. However, this piece of legislation here will come in section 147.1, and let's go down to 147.2 of the same Use of Fire Act. And it says here, whosoever set fire or cause fire to be set to any tree, brushwood, underwood, rubbish, guinea, or other grass, trash, or cane piece for any purpose, whether any damage or injuries are occasioned to any property or any person without notice given and proper precautions taken, as this section provide, shall be liable to a fine of $500.
Okay.
Yes, so notwithstanding the farmer has the license, he didn't get a response from the Ministry of Agriculture. If he go ahead and set the fire, and the fire get out of control and cause damage, he'll be liable under that section of the law.
All right. Now, my next question leads to this. I only up to yesterday being on air, an individual called in and stated, well, I'm living in this particular community, and someone is lighting a fire, and it's this, of course, someone may have health-related issues when it comes to the smoke that is emitted from the fire. Where does the law speak of that, especially individuals lighting fires in a community? We slip from the agriculture part of it, and now we're talking the fires that are set within the close proximity of particular communities and so forth. Where does the law speak of?
So to the person's concern yesterday, that will be under the Use of Fire Act.
Yes, the Use of Fire Act.
Because you remember section 147.1 states, for the purpose of preventing loss, damage, injury, or an injury, every person who intends to set fire or cause fire to be set to any tree, brushwood, guinea grass, and so forth, shall give notice to neighbors possessing or in charge of property.
All right.
So you live in a close-knit neighborhood, and it is your intention to burn some grass or whatever is the material you intend to set fire to, and which we highly encourage you not to.
All right.
Do you understand? This is what the law is asking of you. To give notice.
I am assuming we have just spoken about someone interested in lighting fires within a close a particular community around their house or something of the sort. Is it the same procedure an individual has to follow as the procedures with someone from the farm who in the farming community?
No, the Agriculture Fires Act seeks to regulate fires that are on lands that is being used for agricultural purposes,
yes,
or being prepared or in the course of preparation for agricultural purposes.
All right.
Yes, however, we have to take in consideration in some areas, in residential areas, it all depends on the parcel of land you have. A portion to the front is considered to be residential.
Yes.
And then the part to the back is considered to be agricultural. Right?
All right.
So if the portion at the back is considered to be agricultural, then the individual who intends to set fire in that portion of land
have to go get permission from
the license
from the Ministry of Agriculture, yes, in order to light fires in the back of the house.
Yes.
All right. Even if you live in a residential community.
The greater responsibility is informing your neighbors.
Yes.
Right? Because we have persons who have different medical challenges.
Yes.
And we want to make sure that we reduce the occurrence of persons having to go to the hospital as a result of smoke inhalation and so forth.
All right.
Yes?
All right.
And sometimes in cases, you have persons who are not neighborly. You understand? So they have no relationship.
Yeah.
So you burn today, I call the police come. I didn't do anything. I didn't call the police. I just leave you, let you go ahead. But I, Mr. Mitchell, intend to burn tomorrow. And I am aggrieved.
Yeah.
And I go to the police. You understand? But it's Mr. Mitchell's responsibility to inform me. Notwithstanding Mr. Mitchell and I are not on speaking terms.
Yes.
It is my responsibility to inform him.
That
Mr. Mitchell,
you shouldn't be burning fire.
I have to do this. I have some stuff here I intend to burn tomorrow. You understand? I'm just informing you, so if you have clothes or if you're going to be there or whatever it is, we could absence yourself or not. And Mr. Mitchell, notwithstanding that, I won't be home tomorrow. You understand? So you could go ahead.
All right.
But what we've seen happening now, because sometimes of the amount of materials persons are burning, so you have a lot of ash,
yes,
and so forth, depositing on other person's property. Man. So we really want persons to, avoid, burning as much as possible.
So that's where the issue of having that consideration for others comes in.
Yes.
How concerned is that from the fire department, and it relates to that when it comes to concerns from individuals who just indiscriminately burns fire without informing their neighbors, of course, especially in a residential area, not informing their neighbors, even individuals, hey, I'm going to be burning. People have health concerns. You may not know that individual. Not everybody going to tell you their health problem they have with their health, but how concerned is that from the fire department?
Yeah, it's a great concern because often we get calls from person in the community that person born and it affects them, the clothing on the line, health-wise. Another thing we want to discourage, that persons taking the law in their own hands. Because sometimes your neighbor burning, because last week you burn, they call the police. This week you burning, the neighbor burning, you might not say, okay, you call the police last week.
I go call the police this week.
Call the police. Or some last week you burn, you dot up my place, wasn't satisfied with the response you get from the neighbor, so you decide now they go just going out through water on that fire, and the big contention of
and some conversation kicks in
the community. So it's a very concern area for us. But most of the time when people call, we try to reach them, go to the community, go to the persons, advise them. If we have to make an arrest, we do that. We make an arrest, and they'll be charged for setting that fire. So it's a great concern for the fire department, where people like and feel to inform the neighbors and so forth.
All right. Anything you want to
just to indicate to the general public that the department will be taking a zero tolerance approach.
Yes.
To curb situations of persons setting fires indiscriminately without the proper authority, failing to inform your neighbors, or setting fires on agricultural land without the license.
All right.
Yes. From the department point of view, we have done sufficient public education on that, and what we have to do now is to prosecute persons and believe in the prosecution of persons. We will see a reduction in the amount of incidents involving indiscriminate setting of fires and so on, persons setting fires without the proper authority.
All right.
Yes. So we just want to send this message out.
All right. We due for a break. Let's take it. When we come back, we discuss some more. To our listeners and viewers, if you do have a question or two you may want to ask the officers, feel free to do so when we do come back in the next segment. 435-2041. After the break. Stay with us, folks.
I want you to control your anger. There's a way to feel better. That's one thing to remember. No matter where you are, you can be a star. Stop and take a deep breath and relax yourself. Take another deep breath and relax it, and relax it. Eliminate violence. Rock the box, we say, yeah. GBN, we say, arts and culture living, yeah. Rock the box, we say. I'm telling you, rock the box, rock the box, rock the box, we say. I'm telling you, rock the box, rock the box, rock the box, we say. We'll be jamming here on a Thursday. Who does man of the party? Tell them it's 4-7 trade. Shout it, let them know where we represent 4-7 trade. Who's the body's passing? 4-7 trade. Them no crazy like.
back, listeners. Welcome back, viewers. It's To The Point here on Classic Radio and GBN TV. Welcome back, officers from the fire department this morning. Before we continue or even accept some calls this morning from our listening and viewing public this morning, let's just roll back a wee bit, because you were explaining some of the laws relating to setting fires, especially in the agriculture sector. Let's talk a wee bit about, let's say I have some farmlands. I decide I want to light or set some fire to, so of course some whatever I have there that I consider needs burning. I go to the agriculture department in order to obtain the license or the procedure that follows through from that. I was refused. What are my options?
You have an option as the farmer, right? The Agricultural Fires Act, Section 6 speaks to that. It says if you are aggrieved, you can appeal to the minister. The person aggrieved by the refusal of the authorized officer to grant a license may appeal to the minister. So, if you make the necessary application, whether in writing or in person, the extension officers visit the land, they carry out an inspection, they get back to you in writing and letting you know that because of the nature or the type of materials you want to burn, from their standpoint, it is not feasible, or probably might be the dead of the dry season.
Yes.
Right? And because of the temperature and so forth, and because normally at a certain time in the season the Ministry of Agriculture assists in conjunction with the fire department stop the issuance of a license.
Yes. So
let's suppose this is that period of time. Yes, then the applicant can apply to the minister, appeal to the minister. You understand?
So he goes to the minister, he gets that permission.
Or any other time when the extension officer refuses to grant you issue a license, to so do, you can appeal to the minister.
All right.
Right? The minister will then sit with his extension staff and have a discussion with them as to find out why. They didn't grant you the license, and the extension staff will report to him and so forth. But sometimes the process could take long, because the ministers are sometimes very busy.
So then the company may not even need the license anymore.
You understand?
Whatever you need to have, Bird. No, let's talk under the circumstances of an individual go aheads. After not receiving that license, he decides, because you did say there's a section where he can go ahead and do that fire, and set that fire. Something occurs where, the fire gets out of hand, penalties that could occur to that individual. Where does the law state stand on that? What kind of penalties an individual could incur by setting that fire, and it probably gets out of hand, and the fire department has to come in and light and distinguish that fire and so forth.
So Section 7 of the Agricultural Fires Act speaks to that. See, every person who set fire or procures, aids, or abet the setting of fire on any land, except under provision of Section 5, and Section 5 that it says that if you don't get the license, if you didn't get a response, then you can proceed. Right? Without except under the provision of Section 5, without a license under this act, shall be liable, right, to a fine of $500. Or imprisonment for 3 months.
All right. So you go ahead, you light that fire, it gets out of control for whatever reason. The fire department has to come in and distinguish the fire. You could be charged $500 and get 3 months in prison.
3 months in prison.
3 months in prison. All right. Interesting to know that. Now, the concept of discriminate burning, I mean, why is it we continue to see that is happening? Is it the issue where we could say a lack of enforcement? Because from time to time, this is not the first time information of this nature has been disseminated. It's been done on a regular, but we still see it continues to happen in areas. Just looking at someone via the Facebook page, and they're saying, in a particular area they had this morning, and folks are burning. You understand? Why do we continue to see that happen? Is it a lack of enforcement on that part or something of the sort?
It's cultural. In Grenada for us to clean and burn, right? However, while it is cultural, there are penalties. Yes, and as I stated earlier on, from the fire department point of view, we have educated, we have cautioned, right? And it is our intention to enforce the law in relation to that.
All right.
So going forward, persons who indiscriminately set fires, and so forth, when officers from the department respond, the necessary action will be taken, and the matter will be brought to court and so forth. So they can explain to the magistrate why you proceed with you go ahead and set the fire without, one, if it's setting the fire without informing your neighbors, two, whether you didn't take proper precautions to prevent the fire from spreading, or three, whether it is setting on a fire on agricultural land without a license. And the granting of the license have terms and conditions.
Okay.
So if you breach any part of the license, you can be prosecuted. The license states you shall burn in small hips. You should have a radius, a clear radius around the hips.
Yes.
Right. You must have an available supply of water. Right. And they give you a period of time when you can burn from within particular hours.
All right.
Right.
Inform the fire.
And you also need to inform the fire department.
Yeah. Most times the license are granted for a period of 2 weeks. So if you see a license and the 2 weeks expire,
you have to reapply again?
Apply for a license. So you probably might get a license and the rain is coming.
Yeah.
For the 2 weeks when you intend to burn. You understand? So you need to reapply to get a license to go ahead.
All right.
Right? So similar to like your driver's license, your birthday date comes around and your license is to be effective.
All right.
So you go through the procedures and you get your license rectified. The same way as it relates to agricultural land, the license expires. You're not at liberty to continue using that license. You will have to reapply in person or in writing to the extension office to get a license to sue.
All right. The concept of advice is something that we have to constantly be throwing out from time to time. Is there any other advice that you would like to throw there, especially to our listening and viewing public, in terms of continuous safety measures that you would like them? Maybe we have missed on mentioning that for some reason. You have you want to throw to our listening and viewing public this morning in terms of preparation for the dry season coming up. Something we may have missed that you may want to throw that we could send out. And don't forget, listeners and viewers, if you do have a question or two, you can give us that call 435-2041.
Well, let me just add some things here. If you live in an area that is prone to bushfires and so forth, and you realize a bushfire is active in your area, right? If you spot a bushfire, call the fire department. Don't assume that we are aware of it. Right? Call the fire department so we can send a unit to conduct an assessment and take the necessary action to stop the forward progress of a fire.
Okay.
Right? Typical safety precautions when you're leaving home at all times. Turn off your gas. Right? Because sometimes you have a gas leak, or sometimes you have your windows open and pieces of embers, right, can come into your house and so forth. Right. Precaution again for persons in areas prone to bushfires and stuff like that, your gutterings. Yeah. Right? Clean your gutterings. Right? On your dung pipes also, because sometimes you have fire burning downhill, the wind blows the embers into the guttering. Yes, they can ignite the materials or the leaves and so forth in your guttering and start a fire in your roof. All right. Right? Your windows and so forth, make sure you have the proper mesh around it. So if a fire is occurring downhill and the wind is blowing, pieces of debris cannot fall into your house on your couch or your curtain and so forth and start a fire.
All right. I have a question from someone via WhatsApp is saying, we've been talking about drought. Aileron is one rare of where one rare most cattle that they are seeing, and which uses a supply the butchers of upstairs, but they face a long drought season during the summer, and they're saying they recall the Coast Guard bringing up water and stored in water tanks which are used for the consumption of the animal, but they years has been by years they have been forgotten for some reason by that particular by the mainland, which is the end the period of the farming due to the heavy drought. What can the fire department do to help the people who still living in that area, rain animals with little or no water, saved for the rain consumption and water for the animals? It's a little bit out of the norm of what we're talking about, but I'm not sure what the fire department can do. They want to know what the situation.
What I will suggest is that the farmers in that area have conversation with the extension division for that particular area, right? And as the person indicated in the past, the Coast Guard assisted. So probably if they have that discussion with the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Agriculture probably can engage the Royal Grenada Police Force. Yes? Probably to use the Coast Guard again, or probably to get some other service to cause the water to get to the animal to ensure that they get sufficient water and so forth.
All right.
Yes? And again, from the other side, you'll have to think about how you can collect and store water as a farmer in that particular area.
All right.
You probably have to look at catchment, how you can develop a catchment and so forth. And Island is a small island, and if you have catchment, over a period of time you're going to run out. But you have to, to make some effort to see how you can do something to put a drop in the bucket than don't do nothing at all, because you don't want your animals to suffer under heat stress and so forth.
So true.
And if you're a caring farmer, you'll do everything necessary to ensure that your animals are well taken care of.
All right. Now here's another question from someone asking. I'm not sure if you're able to answer this one. And they're saying, they're asking, if you have a fireside to cook, example, you're roasting breadfruit or your coconut pot, because there's a lot of smoke, because a lot of smoke occurs. What would it like? Would it look like you're burning a bush? That's what the question. I hope you get a gist of where the person is going with the question. You say if you're cooking and or you're roasting breadfruit, I just say, would it be like you're burning bush because of the smoke nature of it? I'm assuming you get a drift where the question is going.
I get where the caller is coming from on the onset. Yes, when you just light the wood or probably the coconut skin and shell and so forth, you're going to produce a lot of smoke because you have a lot of fiber and so forth that is burning. When that burns out, right, it's basically you have more heat concentration there. So probably on the onset you're going to have that amount of smoke, right? However, you could take measures to reduce the smoke coming out in all that volume. You can get a piece of galvanized, yes, and put over the breadfruit. You understand? So you don't have all the smoke going up in this big plume. You understand? So you reduce. And probably might think about probably roasting less breadfruit on the heap. You probably might slow down your time, but again, you have to take in consideration your neighbors, and their well-being, because as I normally say, if you're causing inconvenience to somebody, put yourself in their position. You understand? And you're going to understand how that person will feel.
All right.
You understand?
All right. We do have a caller. Let's take this caller. Caller, good morning. You're welcome. Good morning to you, caller.
Yeah.
Caller, go right ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm going ahead. Good morning and good program, good everything. What I wanted to find out, looking for some information. Let's imagine I'm a farmer, a registered farmer, and I was farming for, let's say, 20, 30, 40 years, even 50 years. But I never applied for any permit to permission or whatever to burn fire. But it's farming. And I'm doing that for years and no problem. But here it is, a neighbor recently coming to live next to me. Yeah? But I am island and she has her own, but she's very close to me. And I born in as usual. I told her, I will tell her that, well, I burn this fire and things, so in case of anything, she will look out and let me know what's going on. Well, I inform her. And she decided, well, you can't burn. I don't want to fire burn around me and them kind of thing. And she started getting on with that kind of, country. And but she called the police, and the police come and see where I burn in the fire. It's not really close to her, and around my fire where I burn in, properly cleaned out because I know how to burn fire. I burn small group, and apart from a small group, I clean the wind, not with the wind. And I clean all around me, so in case of any little wind, nothing won't fly. But she called the police. How would the police deal with that towards me? Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much. Anyone respond to the caller? Of course.
Well, the laws always remain in effect.
Yeah.
So if there's a process whereby he's burning and it's affecting the neighbor, then we'll have to take the laws have to take its course.
Yeah.
If it's a process whereby he's burning and he didn't get proper license, regardless of how many years he may be in that area burning, but the law is stating that you must obtain a license to burn.
Yes.
So if it's affecting the neighbor that newly comes, then he will have to go through the procedure and through the right channel to do so. If the officers call out, then we have to respond, and we cannot be biased because he born in there over 50 years, but the laws have to take its course, and when we have to do what the law go according to the law. We can't go contrary to the law, so we have to take the course what the laws said. And if it's a matter that we have to take it to the court beyond, we will do that. Right. So it's not a matter that he's born in for how many years and in that place for how many years, and a new neighbor come. Then even though it wasn't a neighbor and somebody passing and they see the fire and they report it, then the law still have to take his course.
All right. Well, we do have another caller, although we do strap for time, but we could entertain another caller. Caller, good morning, you're welcome.
Yeah, morning. Now we're dealing with agricultural fire and animals. I wanted to take a no tolerance approach with Lego animals, cows, cattle, pigs. You talk about making a backyard, agriculture backyard. You put in your horse.
Caller, we are talking about fire preparation for fire. Of course, yeah. I think your question is a little bit off the topic line this morning, so we won't continue that. Let's take one more question from someone via the WhatsApp this morning. The individual is saying, my landlord continues to burn and smoke up only our buildings, but the neighbors are in the neighborhood as well. In addition to smoke, the smoke is heavy and is becoming very stifling. The smoke comes into your house and stays. How can we handle this without any stifle or a way of answering? How can the individual ask how they can handle that?
Well, they report it to the person report it to the fire department.
Yeah.
Then we proceed to the scene. The individual will, if it's if it had been one before, will be arrested and be charged for the offense. Because as we stated in the law, he must inform the neighbor.
Okay.
Must inform the neighbors. And if is a period where he hasn't been informing the neighbors, then the law has to take its course.
All right. Well, I think the individual is talking about the individual is their landlord, so probably he owns the property and he's burning the sort. So
notwithstanding,
he's notwithstanding whether it's the owner of the building or not, or owner of the property. He cannot burn indiscriminately.
No,
just can't do that.
Just cannot do that.
Do that. Gentlemen, we got into that time of the morning where we have to take a wrap. Any closing comments this one before we take a wrap?
Well, I want to encourage the general public, as the inspector said, this year is he has come in if we are wrong, and no burning policy.
Yeah.
And also want to encourage persons that bonfires and just light small heaps and they think it's okay and they leave and they may go to work or go to somewhere. It's important that we listen the weather news. Very important, because you may light a fire, you may see a small heap, and there may be a change in wind direction, and there may be a change in the condition of the day according to the rest of the material that is around you. So I encourage persons, don't burn. If you light a small buka and you're around, make sure you are around to supervise it. Don't leave it unattended and just turn your back on it, because you may return and what you may find may be shocking to you.
Okay.
So I'm encouraging persons to do the right thing. If you have to burn on agriculture, any agriculture purposes, please obtain the license to do so.
Okay.
So that's my advice for the general public this morning.
Inspector Hamilton?
Just to add with what Sergeant Mitchell indicated, I really want to impress on the public that we should cease and find alternative means for burning bushes and so forth. So to the farmers and persons involved in the agriculture industry, the fire department is not against you. We are just implementing the laws as stated, and we look for your cooperation. And for the persons who live in a close-knit neighborhood and so forth, who tends to set fire, cause fire to be set, again, you're obligated to give notice to your neighbors. Yes? And if you fail to do so, the matter will be investigated, and you will be most likely charged and taken to court.
Okay.
So from the fire department point of view, for persons who would like to have more information on bushfire prevention and so forth, you could visit the fire station closest to you. We have fire stations strategically located throughout Grenada, to include Carriacou.
Okay.
And the officers there will be more than willing to give you information and so forth.
All right, I want to thank you both officers for sharing information this morning, and I certainly hope the listening and viewing public did, of course, obtain the information and of course, make proper use, especially when it comes to the laws, of course, and just do the proper thing, to prevent fires and not, of course, the disturbance of your neighbor with the smoke and so forth. I want to thank you once again. I want to thank all listeners and viewers, those of you who, of course, participated this morning, whether you called in and you sat home and you listened. Thank you for being part of To The Point. Have yourself a great day. That's what we say goodbye for this edition of To The Point. Have yourself a good day, folks. Goodbye.